Hello and welcome to Rotten Commentatoes episode 4. I'm your host Keegan Robertson, joined as always by my co-host
Darren Mortimer.
Today we're going to be looking at Blade Runner 2049 for the second time because we fucked up the audio on the first one. Hopefully we can get it together this time.
Yeah, we'll try. We'll do our best.
I like that voice. Alright, 2049 opens up with a credits scroll. It's talking about how replicants no longer live for only 4 years. They have indefinite lifespans. People are peeved about that. I tell you what, they didn't like it. Darren, you said you watched a prequel where people kind of uprose against that?
Yeah, there was a big lynch mob essentially formed internationally, and they were going around tracking down replicants through the public record and just killing them.
And that was because they didn't die after 4 years.
Yeah, it was a rebellion, I guess, against the Nexus 8.
Because people don't like being inferior to robots. I can tell you that. If I ever get a toaster with an LCD display and it tells me I'm doing it wrong, I'm going to fucking throw that thing out the window.
Yeah, ship that off to the San Diego junkyard.
It's biological rage. So we open on the gorgeous Ryan Gosling flying into a wasteland that is California. And we saw this in the last movie. If you remember, it was kind of dystopian, technological wasteland / carnival. Everything was over projected. The buildings were huge to a ridiculous point because that movie was made in the 80s and they gave it 30 years or 40 years. They thought that was going to happen, which it didn't.
Nope.
The technology was at the same time amazing and shitty. They could fly cars, but they couldn't get away from the VCR yet.
And the CRT
Their
monitor.
shit still ran on analog. Yeah. So I feel like this one has done a way better job of stepping back from that movie, but taking the best parts. So it's still dystopian, but you get a little bit more nature throughout the movie. You get to see what this world's about. It's less claustrophobic than the original. And I think some people aren't going to enjoy that Villeneuve kind of took the reins on this world.
Well, I mean, for me, I always really enjoyed the cityscape setting in the original Blade Runner, but at the same time, I really like how Villeneuve is kind of have that telescoping effect where we get to see the nitty-gritty streets and alleyways, but then he zooms out and shows us what the surrounding areas look like. We get to see these different environments, different colors.
Yeah, and it looks lived in.
Yeah.
It looks like people actually live in this universe. And then the other one, it looked like a bunch of people living in an alien world. It was so different and so inexplicable that that shit could happen. Like, why are we building giant fucking pyramids 40 years from now? It's just a big leap in logic. And now, living in 2017, they only got 2 years to get all this shit done. Do you know how frantic the fucking building crew is going to be on those?
Oh, yeah. There's going to be a time crunch, to say the least.
So Ryan Gosling in the opener, he's lurking.
He's lurking.
He's looking.
He's lurking.
He's looking and he's lurking. He's looking for 6 replicants, and they're part of the Nexus 8 program, and they're to be retired because they didn't want to. They're doing their own thing, making colonies and running away from the cops, etc. So Ryan Gosling has to Blade Runner. I don't know how you'd say that in a verb. Blade run?
He has to Blade run.
And he goes down to this little maggot farm in California to bring in Dave Bautista, who plays Sapper. Now, the thing that I love about Dave Bautista is that he's obviously gone on set and stolen an extra's glasses. He has possibly a 5-year-old child's glasses on his face during this movie. And I think that maybe Villeneuve didn't want him to wear the glasses, and he might have just been like, I'll do with it.
I'm putting these on.
I'm smart now. I'm smart. It's so ridiculous to see this giant man with these tiny little glasses. Also, why does a replicant need glasses, Dave? You got perfect fucking vision, Dave.
Yeah, come on.
Get over it.
You shit the bed on
Why
that
didn't
one,
you?
Tyrell.
Yeah, why didn't you read a book or something if you want to look smart instead of your little baby glasses? But probably my favorite thing in the whole movie is Dave Bautista in those. So,
I like how they
so
made him
him
a
and Ryan,
farmer because it immediately drives home the moral question of why are you going out and killing this guy? He's living peacefully on the outskirts, he's farming some maggots. He's not hurt. He's not harming anyone. He just wants to live his life. He's growing garlic.
he's just growing garlic and obviously doing shoulder presses with like cars all day
Just rip.
while reading. Him and Ryan Gosling have an exchange that makes it very clear that Ryan Gosling is a replicant, but he's still enslaved. He's a different model, and his job is to betray his own kind. And Dave Bautista basically tells him that he's the shit shoveler for civilization, and that if he had seen a miracle, he would understand why they do this. And Ryan Gosling doesn't look excited to be doing this job.
No.
But he doesn't look conflicted. It's literally like if he had to shovel shit. He's like, well, I gotta do this. So him and Dave Bautista have a Royal Rumble, and it looks amazing actually. You'd figure a guy that weighs 265 pounds versus a little fella like Ryan Gosling wouldn't be an exciting fight, but whoever choreographed the fight did an amazing job of elevating their abilities to a superhuman level.
Yeah,
and I love that.
It carries like a lot of weight to it. The fight.
Yeah, they look like kung fu masters, or like Arnold Schwarzenegger in any of his movies, where they shrug off stuff that a regular person would get taken down by. So Dave Bautista pushes Ryan Gosling through a wall and slams his head into the ground like 4 times, and then stabs him in the shoulder. And through all that, Ryan Gosling doesn't even flinch. He gets stabbed through the shoulder and then just brings his hand down and continues to beat the crap out of Dave Bautista.
How he just doesn't flinch when he gets like the scalpel or whatever it is in his shoulder. It's just like nothing happens to him. It's like a scratch.
It's immediately noticeable too. This is weird. He didn't even flinch. And you're like, ah. There's an explanation for it. Where in a lot of action movies, they just do that shit anyway, like Schwarzenegger or Rambo.
They're just the tough guys.
Yeah, and it's bullshit. But in this movie, you don't have to. It doesn't take away from your suspension of disbelief, because you're like, he's a robot. He should be doing that. That's fine. Whereas when somebody else does it, you're like, well, this is sort of dumb.
That's ridiculous.
But you know what? I don't like Fast and Furious, so maybe I'm the dumb one.
No, I'm with you on that one. It's Point Break.
I knew you would be.
It's Point Break with cars. Like, come on. Let's get real here. Let's call it what it is.
So, Ryan Gosling dispatches Sapper, that's Dave Bautista, easily, and calls into his boss and searches the perimeter, and what they find is a box. And in the box is a body. And you're thinking, oh, here we go. Here we go. This is going to be like last Blade Runner, where he's going to have 2 clues, and the plot is just going to walk him into the ending. But a pleasant surprise with this one. There's actual detective work. Darren actually has seen this movie twice, and before I went to see it with him, he said that I would have a good time with the logic of the film, how he gets to the ending, and I really did like it. Because the first one, I was sitting there the whole time thinking, I was a little bit stoned, but I was thinking, how did we get here? He found a scale, and then everybody just kind of walks up to him and says the exact shit that he needs to hear, and then at the end, none of the detective shit mattered because they die anyway. Where this one, it's very important that he finds this stuff out.
Well, yeah,
it affects the end of the plot.
He basically just follows like 2 leads, and that's all.
Yeah.
That's all he needs to do. Which is, once you pointed that out, I realized that is kind of like a weak point in the original movie. And he's doing a lot more actual detective work.
Well, again, with Blade Runner, I just thought of this, is that whether Deckard killed them all or not, they were about 4 days away from dying. They killed the guy, the only guy that they wanted to kill, they got to and killed. So Deckard didn't save anyone, and then the robots died. So what was the point? What was the point of any of it? He didn't affect it at all. It's another Pandora's box. The Indiana Jones where he opens the ark. And it's like the Nazis would open the Ark anyways, so the whole movie was pointless.
I like the
Whatever,
baseline
this
test when we get back to the Kay gets back to the police station and he's doing that. I guess it's an evolved form of the void comp test.
Yeah, it's very aggressive too. Because Deckard, when he gives it in the first movie, he's very relaxed because Harrison Ford doesn't give a fuck.
You don't give a shit.
But this one, they're really interrogating the crap out of him. They make him say a string of words, and it's very aggressive, and it's designed to break him so that they can see if he's on baseline. Because what the new Nexuses have is a kind of code, and if they're off of their emotional center, this machine can tell, and they get retired just for being upset.
Because these new Nexus models, they obey. They're very obedient.
Yeah, so as soon as you see them move away from that level of obedience, they're going to shut them down immediately because of what happened with the other ones.
Yeah, they want to avoid the public backlash that occurred in between the two movies.
Mm-hmm. He goes to see his boss, and it turns out that body... Did we get to the body?
Yeah,
there was a body...
We were talking about the box.
Yeah, there's a body in the box that Sapper had. He goes back to work at the police station, and they find out that it was a replicant's body. But the most interesting thing about this replicant's body is that it died in childbirth, which is supposed to be impossible for replicants. It's kind of a big what the fuck moment.
Yeah. And Madam, Kay's boss, immediately realizes the implications of this. This is a big deal. This is going to break the world, as she says it.
Yeah, Madam is super duper racist. She doesn't want robots to be able to have sex, because if robots can have sex, then that makes them basically human, and then their workforce is trashed.
Well, they can have sex, but they can't procreate with that sex.
Yeah,
because she makes a few passes at Kay in the movie. Like, I think she wants.
Oh yeah, she wants to fuck Kay. I'm sure she could make him do it too.
Yeah,
which is probably a deleted scene.
Yeah, that's workplace harassment. No, they're just replicants.
They're just replicants. You can do whatever you want, just grabbing his butt all the time. But the one thing with them not being able to reproduce is, does it really make a big difference with them being able to reproduce and not? If you look at racism in our real lives, slaves could reproduce in America, and nobody gave a fuck. They were like, sweet, you guys copy yourselves, and then I have more slaves. So is this really as big of a deal as Madam thinks?
Yeah, well, I think because back then, we were deluding ourselves into thinking that for some reason we were better. And now they've obviously learned in this universe that that's not true, but now they have machines, and they're like, oh, okay, well, we can treat these machines like that because they're not actually humans. We only have to treat human beings on an equal playing field. We don't have to treat non-human beings on an equal playing field. So unfortunately for these replicants, they're placed in the same category as cattle and chickens.
I suppose. I just don't see how birth changes that, because they already fuck them nonstop, make them do all the shitty jobs in society. If they could do the shitty job of having a baby, I would see that as a +1 if I was them.
I was thinking about that as well, because that was the original conclusion I'd come to about it. Because logically speaking, it doesn't make a difference. They're still the same thing.
They're still made out of
I think what it does,
parts.
it does two things. It makes the replicants themselves feel more human because they're being born. They're not being made by these creators. So I think for them, it might be easy. It's easier, I think, for a replicant to accept, okay, well, these humans created us, almost like a god complex. These humans created us. They're our creators. We rely on them for existence. But now
I get to see that.
They have sort of surpassed that level, because now they don't need humans to make them in a laboratory. They just need to fuck like we do.
And I just thought of this. Maybe it doesn't matter about the perception of the public. Maybe they're worried that the replicants, if they can reproduce, will have the ability to grow a population and teach themselves like their own rhetoric. So they're not necessarily worried that people won't treat them as robots anymore. They're worried that they'll have the numbers to sort of rise up against the slavery they're in.
Oh, for sure. And then there's also the question of the baseline. How are these naturally born replicants going to respond to human commands. Are they going to have that? Are they going to be on that baseline? Because now they're going to have an entire life from childhood to adulthood of associating experiences, like processing external stimuli, and they're going to be making their own natural memories. They're going to have that sense of independence that a 4-year-old adult replicant who knows they have implanted memories might not have. So they're probably going to have a much greater chance of going against that baseline and being their own free individual.
And do you want teenage robots? They'll be way too strong.
Yeah.
They'll be hooligans.
Yeah, you take that replicant's
Their hormones
angst,
will be going crazy.
Teenage angst.
Let's not do that. Let's not do any of that. So, Madam says that he's got to go kill the child of this naturally birthed robot, because obviously shit would get fucked up for Madam, and she wouldn't like that. So he goes to Tyrell, or the old Tyrell Corporation, which is now the Wallace Corporation, and he looks for the records on the dead robot. And all this stuff went down during the blackout. So there was a blackout in sometime between 2019 and 2049 that wiped out a lot of the records.
2022.
Yeah. So they're having a hard time getting any information on the replicant's identity, but he does end up getting a small clue. I can't remember what it was.
Well, they scan the hair, and he takes them.
He gets the hair for the DNA.
Yeah, and they take him into a big library of physical records, and it turns out that the dead replicant was Rachel from the first.
Yeah, Deckard's. If you remember from our first podcast, he hung her up from a ceiling fan and beat her with a baseball bat. Because Deckard's a sick fuck.
Well, Deckard he's like a shitty guy. Like, what we see of Deckard outside of his job is just sitting in a dark apartment, drinking. Yeah, he's that hard-boiled cop, alcoholic, hates his life, nihilistic kind of.
Disrespects women for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people
gets into homoerotic fights with robots.
Yeah, and I think we're kind of getting off of topic slightly, but I'm going to touch upon this. Is they get a lot of flack for that scene. Like, oh, well, it's okay because she's a woman or whatever. But it's like, I think that scene is just, like, we're not supposed to accept that. I think we're supposed to look at it and be like, wow, Deckard's kind of a shitty guy.
I think that what made a macho hero in movies back then was not quite what it is today. I think you were just allowed to do that kind of thing, and that was macho.
I think it's probably a little bit of that, but I think it's also about how Deckard is kind of not. He's not a great person. He exists in a morally gray area. Like,
yeah, even the good guy of the movie treats the robots like shit.
Yeah.
So we get the info from Wallace, and as Ryan Gosling is leaving, we get introduced to Wallace himself, which is a badass pontificating Jared Leto who is blind, wearing a kimono, guys. How cool is that? Like, I think he came onto set with that kimono.
Oh, probably.
Hey guys, I just finished up my tour with 30 Seconds to Mars, and I was thinking how I could get even more hipster. And now I'm wearing Japanese fashion from the 1800s. It's pretty dope.
I think he nails the role. At least the love.
He fucking crushes.
He's operating on a different wavelength. He's got that detached feeling, almost like a dark enlightenment.
Yeah, he's definitely above a moral compass because he does some shady shit. He wants his personal assistant robot, whose name is Love. She introduces Ryan Gosling to the info that he needs before he leaves, and then he goes and tells Love, who is a kind of albino. She's very pale. She's got harsh features. She definitely looks and acts like a robot, but she's the personal assistant, so obviously she's got a little more autonomy than your regular one.
Yeah.
And he's going to send her out to find the child, because it turns out that Wallace wants the robots to reproduce. And Tyrell had mastered that, but Wallace has been unable to replicate those results. he wants to use robots to colonize the universe, and he wants them to be able to bang so that he can get a faster growing workforce. He needs
He needs
trillions.
trillions. He needs trillions of these guys because he has a line about the 9 off-world colonies, and everyone's like so impressed by, oh, we have 9 off-world colonies, and he thinks that's bogus. He wants thousands of off-world colonies.
Yeah, so he's definitely got a little bit of he's got a god complex.
Oh, totally. And I think he's a great predecessor to Tyrell.
It's definitely, he's grown. The villain has grown from the last one.
Yeah.
He's got a more well-rounded reasoning. I think Tyrell didn't get as much screen time as he needed to figure out his motives exactly, but Jared Leto's, we get a pretty good in-depth analysis of what makes him tick. He wants to be God. He calls the replicants his angels. He makes one during this scene when he's talking about what he plans to do. He literally has one drop out of the ceiling in a plastic bag full of Vaseline and fall onto the ground.
I love that sequence.
And while he's monologuing to Love, he stands up this replicant, and when he gets to the part about them not being able to reproduce, casually slices her open around the uterus and it kills her. So he's very theatrical, to say the least.
Yeah.
Did I mention he's blind? That part was so cool. He's blind, but
he's got some cool scars too around. Like something happened like physically, I think, to him because he's got these gnarly scars around his eyes.
Too much masturbation.
Oh, that'll do it.
It always does. I can only see out of 3/4 of my left eye.
Gotta lay off the mouse and keyboard there, Keegan.
You know, but he's got these little fish and they're not fish, they're robots, but we're gonna call them fish, and they fly around him, and he sees through them. He plugs in a little chip into his neck, and I thought that was fucking dope.
Yeah, it was super cool.
Like, damn, you can see everything. So he's very, very theatrical. Even that part, he's not just blind. He uses echolocation and has weird orbiting minions that let him see.
Yeah. So
now we've got the setup that Kay and Love are searching for the same thing. So you know shit's gonna hit the fan. The movie's in full mystery mode right now.
Yeah, Love's just gonna let Kay do all the legwork while she monitors him. Her plan is to just sweep in and take the child once Kay tracks him down.
Yeah, Love's a little beehole.
She's pretty intense. She's an intense woman. Don't take no shit.
Kay goes and tells his boss what he found about Rachel, and he's not sure what to do next. And she gets drunk because she wants to party without pants on with Kay.
Oh yeah, she wants it bad.
And she's kind of a battle axe in this movie. This isn't an even. It's his boss. She's an old battle axe. He's a robot that can't really say no. All these are no factors. I was expecting something to happen, but it didn't.
Oh, totally.
Thank the good Lord.
Yeah, he shuts her down pretty hard.
Yeah, he uses what little autonomy he has, and he's like, "No, you're gross."
She has some line about like what'll happen if I finish this bottle, and he's basically like, "No, you gotta go."
Shouldn't I get back to work, lady?
Shouldn't I get back to work?
Please stop trying to rape me in my own house.
It's not rape; they're just replicants, though. I thought no.
He recalls a dream though to her. She asks him about his past, if he remembers anything, what his memories are like, and he recalls a dream where he's getting chased down for this little toy horse, and he puts it in a furnace, in an industrial plant that's not on, so that he can hide it there. And
like
then gets beat up.
Of a big incinerator.
Yeah, and the dream doesn't make much sense, but you see.
I think it's a memory.
Yeah, I don't know why I keep saying dream. It's obviously a memory. It's one of the implanted memories for replicants, and he recounts it to her, but he leaves out a part of it. And you're like, oh, this is interesting. So now we're gonna see some evolution of Kay's character, because he has secrets. He leaves. So after he says no to being raped by his boss, he leaves to go check the DNA from the card that he got from Wallace. So he's looking through birth records
up on those leads like a detective would.
Like an actual detective. Take that, Harrison. Um, the cool thing about the scene where he's looking through the birth records is that he's doing it at a superhuman pace. So he's looking at slides that are going by on a little reel, and they're going for a second or something insane like that. And he's able to follow them with his eyes left to right the whole time.
Yeah, and he's also able to retain all of that information because he eventually gets to another one and he knows he's seen it before.
Yeah. So he's pretty badass.
Yeah, these replicants, man, they're just better than we are.
Yeah, and that's why you're like, why does he get treated worse than everybody when he's obviously a fucking boss?
I think
he read a book in like 2 minutes.
I think that might be one of the fundamental reasons why humans have such a big problem with them, because they're threatened by them, and they know that if they don't keep the reins on, that these guys are going to turn around and be like, you know what, screw you guys. We are the next step in evolution. We're better than you. And we're gonna dethrone you and take your place.
That is true. That is a great example of why you wouldn't want these people around. Can you imagine getting second place all the time to like your little brother that you made in your basement?
Yeah. And it's like, oh well, we need to make these guys because we want to colonize off-world, and this is gonna make it easier. But at the same time, we got to make sure that we keep the leash on them because they're gonna kick us to the side and
because their humans are immediately unnecessary as soon as you get one replicant that can fuck.
Yeah, exactly. And then you add that into the mix, and now they're fucked.
Game over. So he finds birth records, and they're duplicate birth records of two different people. So obviously somebody was lying. Yeah. And he looks through, and one of them died, and another was at an orphanage and never left. So he decides to go to the orphanage. And he's got... Oh, we haven't talked about Joy this time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so real quick, Ryan Gosling has a sidekick in this movie. Her name is Joy. She's a programmed AI that lives in his ceiling. And he buys her, in the first 20 minutes, he buys her a little... What do they call it?
Looks like an e-cigarette.
Yeah, he buys a little e-cigarette that means that she's now portable, and she follows him around, and she is an instigator in a lot of his thought processes throughout the movie because she's his love interest, sidekick, and only confidant in the whole movie because everybody outside of it that's human treats him like shit, but she's an AI, so she totally gets it. She feels bad for him. She knows about his dream. His memory of the horse, and what he doesn't tell Madam is that there's a date on the horse, and the date matches a date scratched into the tree at Dave Bautista's house. So we're starting to see a little interconnection, and she kind of says, "Oh, you're special." Like,
yeah, I always knew you were special. Yeah. So she suggests that the child he's looking for is actually him. Yeah.
And she's riding with him on the way to this orphanage, and the orphanage is in the derelict beach that is, was it Miami?
San Diego.
San Diego is a fucking garbage can in this movie.
It's just a massive junkyard now.
Which, I mean, fuck you, San Diego. Or sorry, go fuck yourself, San Diego, to quote Ron Burgundy. But they probably don't like this movie. That's why the box office got beat by... Happy Death Day this weekend. San Diegans have been boycotting it hard.
All the disgruntled residents of San Diego.
Say it. Say San Diegans.
San Diegans. San Diegonites.
San Diegonites sounds cool. But he's flying in to this trash beach that is San Diego with Joy, and all of a sudden some... What are those sand people? The sand people from Star Wars shoot a harpoon up into his car that can fly, and the car can fly, not the sand people. And they shoot an EMP into the car, and he starts to crash land. And the reason that I wanted to talk about Joy is because she is worried, and when the EMP hits, she starts to flicker. And she freezes in frame like 4 times. And then he crashes, and Uh, I'm gonna have to.
She's worried about him. She's concerned about him.
Yeah,
And like
she's
we've
freaking out.
already got the idea from when we first meet her that they have a relationship. They have feelings for each other.
And Joy's also a throwaway thing, like an iPod or Siri in your phone. Everybody has her, but he treats her like she's unique. And she really has to treat him like he's special because that's what Joy does. She treats everybody the same way, right? Like they're the best thing since sliced bread. But it's interesting how intimate he is with this little creation that's totally not special at all.
You get a sense that he's had Joy for a while because they've developed a tight bond and that tight relationship, and you can tell that Joy knows him well. So I'm assuming when you first go and buy a Joy and bring them home, it would be a totally different relationship because she has to learn everything about you.
Yeah, like maybe if Joy lived at my house, she'd be a real nasty bitch or something. Just
or
take on some of my personality traits.
If you're into some kink, maybe she would be anything you want. She'd be a dominatrix, stepping on you with her high heels. I guess it's not really physical.
But like pretending to step on you, I suppose.
Yeah, pretending.
Because she can't interact with the outside world. That's an important note. So they crash land. The guys are cutting the vehicle open. And Joy's freaking out on the outside and disappears. They cut the door off. He's passed out from the crash. They lift him out of the car, and then he snaps back into action. And I don't know whether he was pretending to be out or if he just wakes up really fast because he's a robot. But he wakes up, and then you remember that scene from The Dark Knight where Bane breaks Batman over his back?
Yeah.
Well, he does that exact same thing to somebody. Darren, you loved this part, didn't you?
Oh, dude, he basically bends the guy in half. It's pretty gnarly.
It's a nasty break. It's like, once again, it's human versus kind of like a mini god.
Yeah, like that guy's done. That guy's done.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have a medical care program. He's not going to be getting a wheelchair. He's done.
It's so quick. He picks him up like he's like a pillow. He's like snap. Yeah. He draws his gun directly after this and makes like 6 perfect kill shots in half a second. Like all you hear is crack, 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 and then 6 guys drop. So you start to see again, these replicants are so superior in every way to humans. No wonder they're scared. The guy, if he had more bullets, he could have dropped all of them. And I think that he just chooses not to in that moment. I don't think that the gun is necessarily out of shots. I think that he's like, look, I killed 6 of you in half a second. Do you all want to die?
Yeah, back off. But then you see a whole bunch of guys running over the hill, and I think he realizes that he's probably hugely outnumbered, and that he might be able to take a lot of them out before, but there's not really much he can do. And that's where Love comes in and saves his ass.
Yeah, Love
with some kind of drone.
Wallace's little minion, the half albino, is in an orbital ship watching all this and just starts to bombard the ground because she wants Kay to do the detective work. The weird thing is that Love probably could have killed Kay and come to the same conclusions, but for some reason just decides to fuck with him the whole time. She's like a spider watching a fly.
Yeah, totally, like a cat playing with a mouse.
Yeah, I think she just gets bored. She seems kind of really super bitchy the whole movie. I think that she just is a dick out of boredom. But that's fine.
And I love this little sequence with the drone because it kind of it's a comment on today's picture of warfare where you have people destroying at the touch of a button while they sit, wherever they are in comfort. That detached.
And especially with a robot doing it who has no empathy.
She's getting her nails done. She doesn't care.
It's twice removed from the subject because she doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, and I like how that touches upon the different uses. Like you can use a drone for a more, and I'm not gonna say like Kay is being benign in any way because he's going and looking for replicants to retire them, but he doesn't use his drone in any sort of a moral use. He has it follow him around. He has it take pictures and do sort of a reconnaissance, and then Love is just straight up like blown shit up with hers.
Yeah, and they use it again later in the movie. Yeah. Well, wouldn't that be fucked if Villeneuve comes out in like 6 months? He's like, yeah, it was all about drone warfare. Um, so he gets to the orphanage. There's a fella there that runs it, a pretty famous actor. He was in Snatch.
Yeah, he was in Snatch. He's in The Walking Dead.
He's pretty cool, but he's a total dickhead in this movie. He's got child labor. All the kids in this orphanage are just taking apart computer parts and salvaging like the materials from them. And obviously he's beating the shit out of them and treating them like garbage. He's threatening to like put them outside and leave them when Kay walks in.
He has this exchange with Kay because he thinks Kay's there to buy one of the children, and it's kind of got like, you know, they don't come right out and say it, but this guy's willing to sell these children to people for whatever use they want. It's got that really kind of underlined darkness of, yeah, I've got lots of different kids here. You can pick whichever one you like.
Yeah.
Super creepy shit.
Nasty.
Yeah.
So Kay can't find the kid. He beats that guy up a little bit, just smacks him in the face with his gun to get him to tell him where his records are. He goes to the records, and somebody's already been there and ripped the page out for the year that he needs to find out where the kid that was at the orphanage went. The kid that is the special robot that can have sex and make babies. So he gets a little confused, and he's leaving because he's at a dead end. He's got to figure out another angle. And he walks by the room from his memories.
Yeah, he sees an ashtray, and this is something I picked up the second time I watched it. He looks at an ashtray, and there's a horse on the ashtray.
Oh.
And it makes him think about his horse. And you can also tell when he's on the way to that guy's office, he's walking through those stairs, and he can tell, like, well, these are familiar, like these are from my memory. And then he sees that ashtray, and I think that's like a double trigger for him because he hides the horse in a giant ash bin of an incinerator, and there's also a horse on the ashtray. So that makes him think, oh, I gotta go look for this thing.
Yeah, and he starts walking through this complex, and he finds the horse from the memory, but the memory's not supposed to be real. So now he's getting super fucked up. The
look on his face is just like, whoa, world-breaking shit for me.
Yeah. He leaves and goes back to work, or gets called into work, and he takes a baseline test. And that's that thing where there's just dickheads to you try to break you, saying all sorts of weird code words.
Well, before he goes back there, though, he goes and visits the woman
who
makes memories.
What's her name?
Rachel 2.
Rachel 2. So he goes and sees the memory maker because he just found an object from a memory that's not supposed to be real. So he goes to her and asks, hey, how do you know if a memory is real or fake? Like, when you put it into somebody's head, is there a difference? Can you tell what's real and what's not between the two? And she says she can take a look at it. So she saunters over. She's got some sort of compromised immune system, so they can't get right together, but she takes a look at his eyes through the glass. Yeah, she's Bubble Boy girl. And she starts to cry when he's thinking of the memory, and she starts to cry while looking through these like binocular things at it. She's like, yes, somebody lived this. So Kay all of a sudden thinks that he's the robot that can make babies.
Yeah. And
he has to go back to see his boss, and he takes
he gets arrested.
Oh shit. Oh yeah, because she's like, you were fucking around at the memory maker's house when you were supposed to be solving this case. And you're way off baseline, Kay.
Like, you're way off baseline. Yeah, like I think it's an AI that tests him. I just get that vibe by the voice that talks to him when he's taking the test. It doesn't sound like a human.
Yeah, it sounds.
But then he's like he's all pissed off with him. He's like, you're way off baseline. Like, well, come on, get it together, Kay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Kay's way off baseline. That's termination grounds for any replicant. So Madam is giving him a tongue lashing.
Yeah, like literally termination grounds. Not like you're fired.
They kill the fuck out of
you. Kill you.
And it's probably in a terrible way, like a cattle gun or something, because Kay can't really fight them off, right? Because he's got to say yes to whatever. She probably fucks him to death. She's a sick pervy Madam. She was salivating.
Like, you know what? I'll take care of this. Take care of this. You don't have to worry about it.
Guys, he's dead. I'm just going to put him in the trunk of my car. Drive away.
I'm just going to take him home. And
trust me, he's never getting away. So
she's got it all prepped. She probably has a little shrine dedicated to Kay at her house.
she's like, "You're way off baseline," and he says, "Yeah, it's because I killed the kid. I killed the replicant that can fuck." But he says it way different. I can't remember how he says it. And she...
This is why we're not writers for the movie.
Yeah. Although I think my movie would be pretty good.
Pretty good.
I think it's a porno starring Ryan Gosling. Unfortunately. So she says that she can get him out of the building, but his next baseline test is on him. So she sends away the guards, because the guards were immediately coming to get him. They're like going to take him out. So Kay's basically fucked if he goes into that police station next time, because his baseline is going to be off. He doesn't even think he's a robot anymore, and Madam can't save him if he gets tested and he's not proper again. So what he decides to do is just run away, which I wasn't clear on when she first said, like, you got to get yourself under control. She basically, there's no hope of ever doing that, so he has to run. So she's giving him like a day long start.
She's like, you got 48 hours.
Yeah. So the weekend, she gave him the weekend off, and then when he's not there on Monday, they'll be super mad. So what Kay does is he flies to the desert, because it turns out that the horse that he got as a child is irradiated. And the only place with that much radiation is in Las Vegas, which got nuked by replicants sometime between 2019 and 2049, because replicants were mad about being slaves for eternity. So they
and humans were at that time. The prequels fill you in a bit. At that time, humans were hunting down replicants and killing them themselves.
Yeah, it was all-out war, basically, guerrilla warfare between the two factions, which is kind of fair. I see how the humans would be worried because I'm a human, but I also see why the replicants would be pissed off, because when you're made so superior and then hunted down like you're the shitty ones, that's got to be ludicrous.
Yeah, totally.
So he goes to Vegas and he sees the bees.
The bee's knees.
And you said you didn't know why he had the bees?
I was a little bit uncertain. I was pretty sure that had something to do with heat signature to kind of like throw people off.
Could be. That's what I said as well. But also I think it's to represent that Harrison Ford, who is in... Guys, he's in the movie. He's in the movie. Don't act surprised, all right? I kind of got ahead of myself, but obviously that's where we're headed. So I think...
Now, is he the president, or is he Han Solo, or who is he, Deckard? I'm not sure.
He's just himself. in a gray sweatshirt that he was supposed to change back into Deckard's clothes, and he's just like, gray sweatshirt. Fine. But the bees I think are supposed to represent that Deckard is fighting for nature. You know what I mean? Because of his place in the whole plot, the bees are a representation of him being on the side of nature and growth.
Yeah, he's an animal lover. He's like an animal guy. He's got that pet dog. He's got all those carvings.
He fucks robots.
Bees. Yeah.
He loves animals.
And in the book, he actually buys a goat. He buys a real goat. And do androids dream of electric sheep?
Oh.
He's the book touches upon Deckard's love for animals. He's really into them.
So is he
not in like a kind of weird way?
Is he a skeezy fuck in the books, or is that just Harrison Ford playing him?
I think they kind of play it up a little bit more in the movie, but he is kind of that gritty, hard-boiled detective. He's actually married in the book, and they have kind of like a shitty marriage.
Is Rachel in the book?
I haven't read the entire thing.
Oh, so you just got parts. You just got parts of the book down.
Yeah.
Well, this is a great fucking analysis then, bud.
I'm just saying. I know.
All right, it's an animal lover. You don't know whether Rachel's in the book.
I would be willing to bet a large portion of money that Rachel is in the book.
Okay. So we're in Vegas. We're gonna meet Harrison. We walk into the hotel. We're Ryan Gosling. We can feel our six-pack rippling under our shirt. Inside, it's all dusty and dirty. There's no sound. He slowly climbs up to the second level. It's fucking beautiful hotel, just derelict. He's walking. He steps over a landmine. You're like, oh, maybe there's somebody here. Obviously, there's gonna be somebody here. Harrison's in the fucking movie. He sees a dog on the second level just standing there. And the dog's like, and then he's like, you wouldn't happen to have a piece of cheese, would you, boy?
Yeah.
And that is Harrison Ford's entrance into this movie.
Quoting Treasure Island.
Fucking ad-libbed too, I bet. He's just he's literally didn't know they were filming. He's like, "Hey Ryan, do you have some cheese?"
Like, oh, keep going. This is good.
We can edit this together. We can edit this together.
He starts talking about cheese toast, cheese on toast. He's all about the cheese.
Sometimes
he's had to run away from society. He's had to run away from society. The love of his life is died while birthing his child. He's on the run. He's had to give everything up. But all this fucking guy wants is some cheese on toast to go with his whiskey.
And that plays so well into a little tidbit that I have. I listened to another podcast called I Was There Too, and they had Greg Proops on it. And he was in the Star Wars. He was the driver. He was Harrison Ford's driver. Okay? And Harrison Ford used to smoke a joint on the way to set every day. And on the way home every day. And to the point that he ran out of rolling papers once, and Greg Proops said he came out with a cooking pot with a lid on it, and he was like, dude, why do you have a cooking pot with a lid on it? And Harrison was like, I ran out of papers. Lifts up the lid and starts huffing the cooked, like the smoking marijuana from inside of the pot.
Okay, so we have a guy's Harrison Ford invented the vaporizer.
Yeah, no shit. No shit.
Oh, that is brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, I was so amazed when I heard that. It explains so much about his acting process. So baked.
Yeah, Princess Leia, I love you. I know. I know you do.
There's so much footage of him just continuing to talk after his most iconic lines. I know, dude.
I thought you did.
Are we still rolling? So he shoots at Ryan Gosling, and he goes flying off the balcony because he's kind of resigned to the fact that he's got to kill his kid. Like, he's gonna quote a little bit of book at him. He's gonna quote a little Treasure Island at him, but obviously he's got to kill.
He's trying to be Roy Batty. He's trying to be Roy Batty, but all he's ever read is Treasure Island.
We're really missing a guy that quotes scripture a lot. Harrison, you got anything? You got any cheese?
You got a piece of... You wouldn't happen to have a piece of cheese about you, would you, boy?
Okay.
He doesn't have the liturgy that Roy Batty does. But he took Prose 101.
So he's chasing him down, and Ryan Gosling almost steps on a landmine. It's a pretty good scene, all in all. The fight they go through, but they meet at this little cantina in the hotel that's playing a fucked up garbled loop of Elvis Presley being hologrammed into the room on repeat. And Harrison Ford's shooting through the seat cushions trying to get Ryan Gosling, and Ryan jumps up and smacks the gun out of his hand. And then there's this awesome scene of Harrison Ford refusing to speak to Ryan Gosling because Kay is just standing there like, hey man, I don't want to hurt you. Like, he slaps the gun out of his hand and he just puts his hands up. He's like, I don't want to hurt you. And then Harrison Ford just punches him in the face like 20 times. And it's not fast. It's not like he goes do 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 do. He has to set up. Like, he throws a haymaker. Ryan Gosling stumbles back. Then he walks up to him, grabs him again, and throws another haymaker. And just refuses to speak to him. until
Yeah, I think this is also for me. This is more evidence that Deckard is a replicant because he's like hammering down, and I don't think a normal human would be able to make Ryan Gosling stumble back from a punch.
maybe, but Harrison Ford also has to be a badass, and even Villeneuve
Yeah,
wouldn't
that's a
fuck
good
with
point.
that. He's like, all right, man. So you're fighting a robot. You're 90 years old, but you're gonna give him a run for his money, Harrison. You're gonna do it, man.
The mythos of Harrison Ford.
Yeah, but it was so good. These two, for the limited screen time they shared, there's something there that the chemistry between them, and I'm not talking like, is chemistry the right word to use if they're both men that don't want to have sex with each other? I think it's still
Yeah, for
chemistry.
sure. Yeah.
It was awesome. I would love to see them do uh, a movie together for the entire time, like some sort of buddy movie, because they were fucking hilarious. Even in a super serious sci-fi epic, they were fucking hilarious. So Harrison kind of gives it up. He gets tuckered out, which anybody would, right? Punching a robot in the face.
Yeah.
And they go upstairs and have a drink. And there's some more quotes up in the whole thing is so quotable when they get together, because they're having a drink and they're talking about Rachel, and he refuses to tell him about Rachel until Ryan Gosling's like, come on, man, like stop fucking around, like I need to know.
I didn't figure you one for bullshit.
Yeah.
This is line. I love that line.
and they're having this back
It's great
and forth.
because Deckard isn't one for bullshit. So it's just like straight up calls him on it. Like Deckard is not one for bullshit.
And obviously Kay in this moment, he thinks this is his father, and he's trying to find out about the baby, trying to get him to make the connection for him. He wants to be the son, right? So asking about it, about he sees that Harrison Ford carves the wood and shit. So obviously this horse is from Harrison Ford. And he's asking about the mother and why he wasn't there for it, the baby. And he looked down at the dog and he's like, "Hey, is that real?" And Harrison Ford just says,
Why don't you ask him?
which is another great ad lib that I could see.
And I think that's Harrison Ford sort of giving his opinion on like what the fuck do you mean?
Yeah,
by
reality.
That? Like, he's there. Do you see him? Yes, he's fucking real.
Everyone's so
You know, was
concerned
he-
with the concept of real and fake, whereas Harrison Ford made a baby with a fucking robot. So for him, real and fake don't come into it in the same respect as everyone else. It's like, because it's a perfect analogy for the film. Harrison Ford is accepting of all the different forms that life is taking in this film, and everybody else is making these exceptions that are just fucking everything up. If he treated everybody like they were real, because they are real, they're just engineered. They still have whatever, a soul, wants and needs and shit, even the fucking fake dog.
Yeah, and they have a ghost in the machine.
Yeah. Love comes out of nowhere. We see a drone on the horizon. Harrison gets mad. He's like, "Who'd you bring?" Yeah.
That's a good
Thank you.
impression.
And
He's like, I didn't bring anybody. I came alone, motherfucker.
and the ships start coming in. Harrison's running for Deckard is running for his ship, and they blow it up and blow them both across the room. Ryan Gosling takes shrapnel in the stomach, and he's basically TKO'd. And
Yeah, he's down for a bit.
and the
there.
Wallace thugs grab Deckard and take him into custody and bring him to Wallace, and just leave Kay, that's Ryan Gosling, on the ground to basically bleed out. Oh, it's the joy scene.
Oh
This
man,
is really good.
so savage.
So right before they
So
left,
savage.
when Kay had to leave his house, Joy gets unplugged from his house and goes into the data stick that makes her portable. And the important thing about
and
this,
she tells Kay to delete her from the main system because they'll be able to find him.
and he's like, "Well, if you get broken in this portable device, you're dead." And she says, "Just like a real girl."
Just like a real girl.
And that's an
Joy, you are a real girl, baby.
yeah. We love you, Joy.
You are real.
Love you.
Team Joy.
But that's the whole the crux of the movie is once again questioning reality. She can sacrifice her life, and she feels the weight of that decision, but she's like garbage to the people around her, and there's a million of her. So it's a great look at there's so many layers looking at the same question, and that's what makes this movie cool. Is she's making the sacrifice that means nothing to the population around her. So she falls out of Kay's pocket, and she projects, and she looks at Love, and she's basically like, leave him alone, you're a butthole. And she's like, just
don't be mean, don't be a bully.
Yeah. And then Love comes over, and she says some snarky shit. She's like, I hope you enjoyed your product. And she steps on Joy.
It's so brutal because it's got that kind of like, it's kind of drawn out with Kay. He's being beaten to a pulp, and he's trying so hard to reach for the thing, and she's just playing with him. I'm like, oh, are you gonna get it? Are you gonna get it? No, you're not gonna.
And
get
Joy,
it.
right before she gets destroyed, leans down. She's like, I love you. It was,
and she doesn't even get to finish. She gets cut off like halfway through.
It was heart wrenching.
I know, and it's like they did a really good job of making you care about this AI character, and like you were talking about layers, this just takes the whole philosophy behind Blade Runner and behind this new movie a layer deeper. It's like they don't even have to be bioengineered for you to want to like respect them, and for them to for that moral reprehensibility of these AI. Like Joy deserves to exist as much as Kay and as much as humans do.
Yeah, the implications of the golden rule, treat others as you'd want to be treated. Where does that end? Because there's a hierarchy descending below humans, and they get treated even shittier as you go down. So the replicants aren't even the bottom. And I think it's taking a look at the way humans take everything for granted. We have the replicants who we treat like shit because they're not like us, and then even lower than that, we don't even have a moral discussion about the AI technology. But both those things are doing some serious consideration about us, right?
Yeah, we treat the planet like shit.
Yeah, we're looking for other worlds. We're just dumping the rest of them like turning San Diego into a fucking garbage can. That's irresponsible.
Yeah, come on, guys. Listen to Al Gore.
San Diegans, get it together.
San Diegans? Recycle. Don't you recycle?
So the turning point of the film, we're gonna head up to the climax from this low point. Kay wakes up. He's been rescued by the Resistance, who's led by one of the people he was supposed to be finding at the beginning of the movie. And she kind of reveals that there's a resistance of larger magnitude than anybody knows. They got a pretty large group trying to save the chosen one, the one that can make babies, because they understand that once they have the key to reproduction, they won't be dependent on humanity anymore. And everybody's life is meaningless in the place of this one robot that can reproduce.
Yeah, and the cause that they like, how that will help them fight their cause. And this whole resistance thing kind of had me worried when I first watched it, because I was kind of worried that the scope of this small story, which is a big part of cyberpunk and the noir side of things, it's just these smaller characters and these smaller, more personal stories. But then you have I was really concerned with what direction they were going to take the resistance. Was there going to be like some big battle
this isn't
scene?
fucking Star Wars.
I was really worried that it might get but I'm really glad that they just kind of showcase like, hey, this resistance is here and it's building and it's going to amount to something, but we're not going to cover that in this movie.
Yeah, you talked about low characters in high aspect.
Yeah, like this is small characters in a big setting.
And that's
low characters.
That's the focus of kind of cyberpunk as well as film noir. Is the detective is always a little fish wandering into a big pond, and for them to introduce the resistance and make the main character a major player in that would have turned the movie into something that wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have been a good movie after that point.
So I was like really worried about it. I hate to backtrack a bit, but there's one really important part of the movie we haven't covered yet. the sex scene between the prostitute replicant and Joy.
Oh,
and
you
Kay,
think that's
the weird,
important, do you, Darren?
freaky.
I don't think we covered it the
Yeah, I
last
do,
time
you don't?
either.
I think
That's
we
fine.
did.
We can talk about it. No, we definitely didn't, because I remember being like, oh shit, we should cover that. All right.
Because it's
So Joy loved, because she's dead now, because we missed it.
yeah.
She loves Kay. And she was such a cool girlfriend that she actually got a prostitute that he had talked to earlier in the film to interrogate. She saw that he liked her and they had some chemistry, so she bought the prostitute and brought her to the room, and they synchronized. So Joy can't touch anything, right? But if she follows the exact movements of the other girl, it'll look like it's her. She can plaster herself on top of the image of the real person.
Yeah, and then they sort of become this strange melding of the two. Like they had there's facial features from the replicant, and there's facial features from
it's not
Joy.
perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It's like a threesome. It's more like a threesome than a twosome, 100%. Because it looks like Vishnu at certain points. The arms come out from each other just enough that you always see that there's two people there. It's not a complete illusion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really well done scene. It's really interesting, and I think it really puts a nice cap on that sort of sideline story of Kay and Joy. That kind of Her. I don't know if you've seen Her, but
no,
it's really.
I'm
good.
assuming they do the same thing.
And there's a similar thing, because there's no hologram in Her, but she does hire like a surrogate kind of prostitute, so they can have more of like a physical relationship. But, and I think Kay is kind of freaked out at first. He kind of feels like he would be, I don't know, cheating on Joy or doing something that he's not comfortable with. But then he gets right into it eventually.
Yes. Is there anything else that you want to cover, like how erect you were during the scene? Any other important points?
No, well, I think we'll leave that out. Okay. We'll leave my my masturbatory predilections out of the
Predilections.
But
yeah, that scene is both it's awkward, tender, visually really interesting, and not because of the boobies. I don't think there are any, but just because of the CGI that they used to cover one person with another, right? It's been an interesting process. But it really shows the relationship growing between Kay and Joy. They're investing some serious
I think that's when you get
emotions into each other.
That's when you start to really get the sense that Joy should really be considered in her own right a sentient kind of human. Not a human, but you know what I mean.
She should have rights and not be stepped on by Love, who is a butthole.
Yep, she's a big old butthole.
She is bully. A great villain as well as a henchman to Jared Leto. She is
I mean, she's like really creepy. She's got this weird kind of almost like, I don't know, like she's got the tears coming out at really strange times.
Well, there's a dichotomy.
She's emotionally unstable
between Wallace and her. One is immensely detached, and the other one is invested beyond what you would think a robot would be, because she really enjoys. She ends up going, when she's trying to find Kay before they go to Vegas, she kills Madam, and she basically says that she's going to tell Wallace that she had to kill Madam. She's going to lie because she really just wants to kill Madam. And that's one of the scenes where you get the weird crying. So she's going through a lot of strange emotional stuff that doesn't quite add up, while her master, that's the actual human, has no emotions going on. If you switch the roles of human to robot, it would make more sense than what's going on in the movie. But that's kind of that's the point as well. He has this tool of aggression.
And I like that scene with Madam and Love too. Is she's like, you just believe her, or you believe him, because he can't lie, but I'm gonna lie. So she's kind of driving home that you were lied to and you didn't realize it, because we can go against
she's
her.
Totally on a power trip about being a
disobedient.
replicant. She wants some respect.
We have our independence, damn you.
But the reveal, to get back to the story, We gotta keep this fucking train moving.
Gotta keep going. Gotta keep.
The big reveal is that she says that the baby was a girl, the resistance leader, and then Kay is like, "I'm a boy," and she's like, "Oh, that's cute. You imagined it was you," and then totally explains the plot. Is that the memory maker that cried when he found the horse and brought it to her and showed her the stuff? The reason that he was able to find that actual object is because it was her memory. So this memory of the horse has been implanted in every replicant, and Kay was just lucky enough to be in the spot where he could actually find it, and it could fuck with his perception of reality. But he is in fact not special in any way. He's only been alive for like 3 years. Harrison Ford's not his dad.
He's not Special K.
Yeah, he's not Special K. His girlfriend's dead. There's no light at the end of the tunnel where has his sentience and everybody needs him to be around. He's just a fucking Blade Runner robot that's half dead.
And that people, because if he messed up his baseline, people are gonna be looking for him.
And that grounds the story right back down, because you're sitting there, and I felt really bad for Kay. I was concerned.
I know.
We've all had moments in our lives where we built up something to more than it is, or you think that you're gonna go on a trip to Mexico or something, and all stuff doesn't work out, or you think you're gonna win the lottery, or some shit like that.
Or you think that you're gonna own a home one day, but you realize you're a millennial and that's a pipe dream.
Or you ask out a girl and she just crushes your heart because you look like Darren. Boom. Hey, go on.
Hey,
the kid's coming for the throat. But yeah, it's such a human emotion, the way that he conveys that feeling. So she says that they have to protect the memory maker, and that Harrison Ford has to be killed because he's been captured by Wallace. He has to be killed so he can't give away the location and the identity of the robot that can have sex and make babies.
You must kill.
Yeah, and she says basically the greatest contribution that a robot can give to this cause is to give up their life. That's the most human thing they can do. Because Kay really wanted to be human, right? So that's the band-aid that she puts on the wound, is like, look, we all want to be the human one, but we're not. So the best thing that we can do is to sacrifice for that one. Yeah.
He's had a
really bad day.
Joey got crushed. Joey gets killed. He finds out he's not Special K. He gets the shit beaten out of him.
And then he gets sent on a suicide mission to kill his dad, who's not his dad.
To kill his stepdad.
That's what I call him.
And I love how the misdirect gives the scene with Kay and Deckard such weight, because you're like, oh man, that's your kid. You're talking about your kid, and he's right there.
Yeah, yes.
But it turns
because
out
the pointed questions that Kay asks him, like, why weren't you there, blah, 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 that's all him asking his father, what he thinks is his father.
Yeah.
So Kay flies off on the suicide mission after seeing a big floating purple version of Joy with no clothes on lean down and basically be like, hey baby, what's going on? It was kind of a slap in the face, right? Because his version of Joy just died, and then there's a super slutty version of Joy just not giving a shit about him, and like,
Marketing Joy.
It was super depressing. It's like, all right, so everything in Kay's life sucks right now, including his relationship with his dead girlfriend.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure. I really like the scene because it's obviously really pivotal. But I'm really interested to know what's going on in Kay's head in this scene, because this is when he's like, I think this is when he changes his mind on what he's gonna do. He's not gonna kill Deckard. He's gonna kill Love, and he's gonna save Deckard.
This is when he starts his planning, you think?
Yeah, I think this
is
when...
Maybe the representation of his girlfriend reminds him that it's not always fun to have... He wants to hold on to some pieces of the life that he had. And even if he's not really Deckard's kid, he feels like he is, so he wants to save him. Because all his memories are part of that. So he flies in the middle of the night... after seeing Joy, and he takes out the henchmen who are on the way to send Harrison to space to be interrogated. They actually tried. Forgot about this part. They cloned a Rachel, which is Deckard's girlfriend from the first movie, and tried to bribe Deckard into telling him where the child is by giving him the version of his dead wife. And he's basically like, she had green eyes, because they fucked up.
Yeah, come on, guys.
Just that one detail, and that stopped him from falling for it. And then Wallace just has Love shoot that Rachel in the head immediately.
Oh, it's so brutal. Yeah, and even though he knows that it's not Rachel, he still kind of flinches.
Yeah, it was nasty. And that's when they decide to send him to space to be tortured, because he's really pissing them off with all his Harrison Fordness. So they're flying him to a launching pad, and Kay comes out of nowhere, blows up one of the. There's a group of 3 cars. He blows up one. There's a little bit of a dog fight scene, and then he blows up the other one, and he shoots down the one with Harrison.
Oh yeah, Kay's in overdrive mode here.
Kay is done getting beaten up by everybody. He's just blowing up cars now. So he crash lands Harrison's car with Love in it, and the 2 pilots are dead. And he gently lands his car beside it and just hops out, all quiet and shit, just being a total badass.
And this is probably one of my favorite shots of the whole movie, with Kay standing next to his car with his coat in the wind, and it's just his silhouette, and there's that fluorescent glow from the car in the water. I love that. It's great.
And this is where we're going to see the big fight between Love and Kay.
Yeah. And this, for me, is really interesting, is it's an inversion of the first scene. In the first scene, we have Kay, and he's going, and he's killing for orders. He's killing his own kind because he's ordered to do so. And we have Sapper, who is fighting Kay for a greater cause. It's like for a greater result than just orders. He's fighting for his life, and he's probably also fighting to protect the information that's buried in his yard. And then we have that completely reversed now, where Love is fighting for orders, and she's gonna kill her own kind because she's ordered to do this, and now Kay is fighting for the greater cause. So the roles are reversed now. Now Love is in Kay's shoes, and Kay is in Sapper's shoes.
The juxtaposition.
Yeah.
So Love and Kay have a full-on karate fight, superhuman style, just fucking with each other, and Kay gets stabbed high up in the rib cage. Classic Gladiator shot. Ridley Scott would have loved it. You guys remember in Gladiator when Commodus walks up and he gives Russell Crowe a hug, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna stab you guts." He just sticks it in there real quick before they fight. Same thing.
Love knows how to fight now. She's Kick
Murder Squad, boys. She's nasty. She's a nasty girl. I don't like her. I really don't like her. She looks like Sandra Bullock if Sandra Bullock was the serial killer. Legit.
Like Miss Congeniality, Miss Sociopathality.
That was a nice one.
So that's clearly not a word.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock and Kay are fighting, and it looks like Kay's lost. The ship that crash landed with Harrison Ford is sinking into the ocean. Harrison Ford is now drowning. Love is beating the shit out of Kay, and then she turns around and jumps back into the water to go save Harrison, and she's getting ready to drag him out of there. And you're like, fuck, what's gonna happen now? I guess Harrison Ford's gonna have to fight her off. And then Kay just torpedoes out of the depths of the water behind her and slams her head into the top of the roof and is choking her in midair, like lifting her off of her feet, choking her up against the roof, which is an insane feat of strength, but I guess not for a robot. Well, maybe a stab.
And you
robot.
can really see you can see in Kay's face that there's that personal side of things.
Oh yeah, he's mad.
He's not just like fighting for the good fight. He's drowning this bitch because she killed Joy. Yeah. Like there's that personal. He's got that personal.
She's been a thorn in his fucking side for too long. Done playing nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, he chokes her up top. She's like trying to poke out his eyes and stuff. That doesn't work. And then he lets her have one breath because he's got to change. He can't hold her in the same angle, and then just pushes her underwater. So she's had one breath in the middle of like a 2-minute scene, and now he's holding her underwater. And there's a great shot that Darren loves from underwater of her point of view looking up at Kay, and it's all distorted from the
it's all
from the oxygen ripples. And then when she stops breathing, it clarifies, and you can see Kay looking down into her eyes.
The waters go still as
very
she
disturbing.
dies.
And this is when you think he's going to kill Harrison Ford, because you're like, well, that's his job. He's got to save the girl. But instead he's like, hey man, come on, let's go. And he drags him out of the water, somehow still kicking after being stabbed in the ribs like that.
Well, I like how you have that pause. Harrison Ford makes it to the shore, and there's no Kay, and you're like, oh no, he's gone. He's dying in the water. He's not gonna make it. But then he does.
That was a fun, happy ending. They get in Kay's car, and they fly over to the Memory Maker's place, and it's snowing. It's a beautiful shot. It looks very naturey. And Harrison looks at Kay, and he's like, who am I to you? Because there's no reason why a replicant Blade Runner should be running around saving all these people and working for the Resistance. It's like, what the fuck, man? This is crazy. But if you think about it, all of his memories are the same as the girl's memories, who is the Messiah. These guys' ticket to reproduction. So in that sense, because her memories are all the new replicants' memories, Harrison Ford is kind of like everyone's dad. All of them have this sense of disconnection because they're made in labs and they fall out of Vaseline tubes and they don't have a mom and dad, but they have memories of this guy. Or they have memories of a child that has memories of this guy. So it feels super personal. So even though they don't have a real connection, that's as close as Ryan Gosling's ever going to get to a backstory.
Yeah, and to a father, to feeling
connected
like
to somebody,
something more than a bioengineered slave.
That's going back to what I said earlier. Basically, that's his only connection left to the world other than his job. He was created to do a job. He can no longer do that job because the people that made him want to kill him. He had joy. He no longer has joy. He no longer has the promise of being the Messiah. All he has left is the tenuous relationship with Deckard. That's the only reason it's the only thing that he has left to accomplish. Yeah. So Harrison walks inside, and Kay gingerly sits down on the steps and pulls his coat open, and then you start to see that there is an alarming amount of blood coming out of Kay.
Yeah. I love this little sequence here. There's a shot where it tilts just very subtly, and you can tell that he's getting dizzy. He's on his last legs, and he has to sit down.
Yeah, and he doesn't look... He looks almost elated. He looks like a guy sitting down in a bed of flowers or something. He's pretty animated at this point in the film.
Because he's done a man's job.
I think he's got a sense of accomplishment. He's like, you know what? The world's fucked up. Yeah. My life sucks. But I did what I needed to do, and now I get to rest. And with that, he lays back on the steps and dies.
Yeah. Goes to time.
And it was sad, but it was also satisfying in a way. I think it was good for...
Well, I mean, he doesn't...
You almost feel like he's had the perfect journey at this point. For him to continue living would have just been more bullshit.
For sure.
For him.
Yeah, what's he going to do? He's going to be on the run. People are trying to kill him. It's not like he's going to go and buy a new joy. Because it's not going to be the same. It's just going to be sad. And it's going to be a realization that... And I think that is also... The whole loss of joy just goes in on the side of the argument that she has just as much of a right to live as any replicant or any human does. Because she might be this product that you can go and buy, but the joy that Kay had is not going to be the same joy that anyone else goes and buy, and it's not going to be the same joy that he would bring home if he goes back.
And if he goes back to that resistance, say he were to live and he goes back to that resistance, there's just gonna be more death and more violence and being downtrodden in this world for him. I think that he's lost everything, but he in the end gave it up willingly, and it's kind of a blessing that he doesn't have to deal with the bullshit that these poor bastards have to deal with on a day-to-day level.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's definitely doesn't have anything left to live
So
for.
we get the final shot. Oh, go ahead.
He served his greater purpose.
Yeah, he rose above his station for sure. He has more autonomy than many of the other replicants will ever get. So we get the final shot, and that's Harrison Ford walks in to see his daughter, Rachel 2. He just puts his hand on the glass, and he says, "You wouldn't happen to have any cheese?"
You wouldn't happen to have a piece of cheese about you, would you, girl?
Just kidding. He doesn't do that. He just like gets a really forlorn, hopeful look on his face.
Yeah, and puts his hand on the glass. I was really concerned about this because I was hoping, okay, let's cut to credits. Kay's on the steps. He's dying in the snow. Let's cut to credits. I don't want some ridiculous dialogue between Deckard and his daughter because they're not going to be able to pull it off. And then it cuts to inside, and I'm going, shit, here we go. Here's, like, it's not going to, and then...
Yeah, you want to have some inference left in the movie. If they talk too much, if they explain too much, it only belittles what was important about the first movie, and that's that you have to ask questions that you answer yourself. So I'm glad that they didn't speak.
And I think and ultimately I don't think that you would be able to pull that scene off anyway without it coming off as cheesy or silly or unrelated to the overall story. What matters is that Deckard is finally able to meet and be with his daughter. That's all we need to know. That's all we need to see. We don't need to see him explaining, like, oh, I'm your dad and this person was your mom and she was a replicant and blah, 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 blah,
coming
blah,
off all the shit that Ryan Gosling had to go through to get his ending in the film, for them to give Harrison Ford an equal slot is just not earned, because we haven't been following him around for the whole movie. He hasn't lost as much shit. I mean, he did, but it's not covered in the same close-up that Kay's is, so they ended it really well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think that last little shot of her standing in the snow and then waiting a second and walking up to the glass, and Harrison Ford has that little twinkle in his eye because he's finally got to meet his daughter, and I think they ended it nicely. They ended on a good note. Yeah.
So
yeah, that's
the entirety of
2049. What was your favorite part? What was your favorite part of the movie? What did you like most about it?
My favorite part of the movie was probably when he meets Harrison Ford. Yeah, it was the levity of it in the middle of a movie that was so full of information. It was full of beautiful shots, complex ideas. You had to infer a lot from partial conversations about the past of this place, the nuclear bombs and stuff, the EMPs, what's gone on to create the world that you live in. You're doing a lot of work the whole movie, and then when you get that extended play between the two characters where you're not advancing the plot at such a breakneck pace, where you're not getting as much exposition, where it's just two actors chewing on this world that's been created, really enjoying it for that small bit that they're together. I liked that they got to play, that you could laugh in a movie that was this big.
Oh yeah, definitely. I like the little moments of humor between them and the whole piece of cheese line. But I also like I said before, I like the gravity that scene carries with the whole misdirect, because it just wouldn't have had that same emotional weight to it if we had already known that Kay was not the child. And I think for me, it's really hard to pick a favorite part. I think one of my favorite aspects, not like necessarily a specific moment in the film, was just the establishing shots. They were so well done. The world building is incredible. The sense of scale, the sense of dystopia, and the different color palette and the different atmospheres that each setting carries is really unique and really specific and really well.
Yeah, we've actually had some recording problems doing this movie before, because we finished an episode and it was just compressed in a strange way, so we couldn't use it. But we did end up talking a lot about the visuals. They spent so much time on the visuals, and a lot of movies don't give a fuck about aging well. Like Transformers and the Fast and the Furious, they're just out to make the money, and I don't think there's as much artistic vision there. People spent some serious time figuring out the most practical way to pull off the shots so that they got what they wanted out of them. It wasn't just to make an explosion that scares people in the theater. It was to give people art to that they would have to parse through and make their own opinions about.
Yeah, and that's what's always great about both of the Blade Runner movies is the questions they ask and the questions they leave unanswered and the conversations they start, the social philosophies that they bring into question.
Do you think that Blade Runner 2049 was better than Blade Runner?
I think it might be. Yeah, I think it might be. And I don't know if that's because certain parts of Blade Runner might be outdated or if there's definitely parts of 2049 that are stronger than the original. Like we were talking about, the detective work is much stronger. And how they take it a deeper layer with artificial intelligence.
I think that the first one has had 40 years to percolate into the second one. So a lot of the things that were wrong with the first one were able to be corrected in this one. So it's not a fair comparison.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that they definitely did a fucking amazing job with this one in comparison.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I was actually really nervous when it first became known, there's going to be a Blade Runner sequel, and I'm going, why are you doing this? You can't pull off a Blade Runner sequel. Get real here. Not to mention, I was worried about the question of Deckard being answered and having that whole ending of Blade Runner be ruined for me. But they don't answer that question, which I think is great. And they pulled it off. I think it's probably the best sequel to a film as big as Blade Runner that has ever
even
been made.
The Fellowship of the Ring is better than the Two Towers. So what else you got?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like Godfather Part 1. Everyone says Godfather Part 2 is one of the sequels that's better than the original, and I kind of don't think so. I mean, Godfather Part 2 is unreal. It's a wicked movie. I love it, but I think that the original is a bit better.
All right, we're starting to get pretty long here, so I think we're going to have to cut it off. Darren, you getting this movie?
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully I'll get to see it a third time in theaters, and then I will be buying it on day one for sure.
If for some strange reason you haven't gone out and seen this movie and you're listening to a fucking podcast about it, go watch it. Give it some time. Just if you don't enjoy it, you don't fucking have to, but you at least deserve to give your brain some.
If you don't enjoy it, go watch some Michael Bay.
Or It, which was a much easier to digest movie that we also covered. We don't want to just tell you to go fuck yourself.
Yeah, but it's also a really good movie. But and also go check out the short films, the prequel short films. They fill in some interesting gaps. They're really, really well done.
All right, guys. Next week we're gonna be looking at Ex Machina, and we'll see you at that one. Remember to treat your computer like it's a person. Rotten Commentatoes out.